We're back. I'm here with Amanda, Rob, and Zach, and we're going to talk about the 10 Oscar races that are below the line, which means not writers, not producers, directors, or actors. So to start us off, we'll cover Best Cinematography and go through our nomination predictions. So we're all predicting Roma, The Favorite, and First Man. And Amanda, I'm going to ask you why you do not have Cold War in your predictions, seeing as both BAFTA and the American Society of Cinematographers have chimed in, and they both have nominated Cold War, and they are the two groups that overlap members with the Oscars.
Oh, I accidentally didn't put Cold War in. I actually meant to bump A Star Is Born and put If Beale Street Could Talk and Black Panther in. I think Black Panther is going to have a pretty good haul. And one place that it could definitely pick up a nomination is for Rachel Morrison, who made history last year as the first woman nominated, and I think should repeat. So I'm digging my feet in and sticking with that. But yeah, thank you for reminding me I need to put Cold War in and bump A Star Is Born out.
And what's wrong with A Star Is Born?
I just don't think of it as a cinematography achievement. I think I don't think it'll get a writing, but I don't know. It's not a movie that I think of the camera placements and angles as much as I think of the other films.
There is also that the cinematographer recently assaulted somebody.
That also, doesn't help its chances.
How do you feel, Zach?
I just have the ASC 5 in my predictions. Sometimes there's like that weird outlier that happens when we go from, ASC to Academy, but usually there's about the same 5 will get in because there's membership overlap. So I'm sticking with that. I think that I was really surprised that Rachel Morrison did not get in at the ASC, considering, as Amanda said, she made history last year as the first woman ever nominated, and I mean she's been on the circuit a lot. She's, very popular right now. And so,
and she received a lot of attention last year, like more than some of the acting nominees received last year.
And not for nothing, also shot the biggest movie of the year. So I don't know if I'm sort of wavering on how well I think Black Panther is going to do nomination-wise. I think that it might, miss in some key categories. And I think that this, unfortunately, might be one of them. So, yeah, I'm just sticking with the ASC 5. I will say, in terms of Roma, this was Alfonso Cuarón's biggest hurdle to overcome. No director has ever been nominated for cinematography before. They're incredibly, they're closed off, that particular group of people, that particular group of below the line people.
And they could still be closed off. I mean, it would not be like a jaw-dropping surprise if they went no.
They still could, yeah. But I think that,
saying,
yeah.
I know it's not a popular opinion. I'm just saying keep your expectations in check.
I agree with you, yeah. So I feel like, he might be the most vulnerable, but I do think this was his biggest hurdle to overcome. And Netflix has been very smart about like having him do Q&As with Chivos so that, that cinematographers can more readily accept doing this.
And Rob, you have the same ASC 5. So what say you?
I think generally what the smart thing to do is to follow the ASC, right? They don't always translate 5 for 5, but it appears that these 5 films are absolutely the front runners in terms of general support that I've seen from critics groups. And I think the Cold War one is really interesting because that's like the second black and white film from a foreign country to me. Like that's how I think a lot of people might look at it. And I wonder if Cold War is going to affect Roma's or Alfonso Cuarón's chances to win this prize because it looks like he is so out in front.
I actually wonder the opposite. If it's like we're going foreign with Roma, maybe we're just going to ignore Cold War because we're not going to have 2 foreign black and white films in, and then something like Black Panther or something else sneaks in.
I think Black Panther will be the surprise for me. I think Cold War looks pretty certain, and the reason for that as well also is because of Ida a few years ago, and so there is precedent for it. And also there's been the White Ribbon, and there's been a few other foreign films, particularly black and white ones, that have seemed to have made it through with the cinematographers group. So I think this 5 is pretty set in stone for me. And the only one that I'm actually wavering on is not A Star Is Born. It's actually is The Favourite, and I don't really know why. I just looking. I think the fish lens dynamic. A lot of the film is filmed slightly differently to the other 4 films. May turn off some more traditional cinematography group voters, and so. But apart from that, I think this one's pretty sandstone.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you, Rob, that it's sort of the same problem that I think Yorgos Lanthimos has been experiencing, which is that some people don't like the stylistic choices of the movie. They may love the actresses, but they don't necessarily like the way that it was shot and directed. So he could be vulnerable. The one who I really am surprised it has not been translating as much as James Laxton for If Beale Street Could Talk. That's very lush, romantic, colorful cinematography. I would love to see him pop up, but I don't know if we're going to have. I don't know how different this ASC 5 is going to end up being from the Oscar 5, and if he would even be the one, if it would be him or Rachel Morrison that would show up.
Yeah, Amanda and I both have him in 5th. Even though he hasn't shown up at ASC, I think he'll be helped by, he is more of a passion choice, and that's how the Oscars count their votes, whereas I could see how A Star Is Born could get nominated by ASC just through visibility, since they're not ranking their choices. And A Star Is Born did miss at BAFTA for Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's one that I'm really kind of curious to see if that shows up, because, Newton Thomas Sigel is a guy who's been around for a very long time.
Drive.
Yeah, Drive.
One of the things that I think helps somebody like Rachel Morrison is we're not going to have a female director. It's just not going to happen. But you know what? This is a place where we can still have a prominent female nominated, and she's probably the first woman cinematographer trusted behind the lens of a $200 million franchise. And when you look at her past work, like Mudbound and Fruitvale Station, with Ryan Coogler, it's come on, let's just throw her in there. And I wonder if there's room for 2 black and white foreign films in some of these categories.
I think there is, and also for Rachel Morrison. I think that they could have both of those and that as well. Black and white is such a rarity these days that they just seem to nominate it every time that it's up, just as a kind of oh man, I remember how much we love black and white. We don't get to see this every day, and so I think
to have a category just for cinematography, black and white films, and films in color.
Yeah.
Back in the day when they were trying to be fair and inclusive.
I guess, in terms of Rachel Morrison, I don't know how well Black Panther is going to do overall, because it did miss at some key guilds and it did poorly at BAFTA. And so it makes me wonder how much support there actually is for this movie. But yeah, I'm 50-50 on her chances.
All right, so we'll move on to Best Costume Design, which is next alphabetically. So we all have The Favourite, Black Panther, Mary Queen of Scots, and Mary Poppins Returns. Zach and Rob, you have BAFTA Critics' Choice nominee Bohemian Rhapsody, and Amanda, you have Crazy Rich Asians, and I have BAFTA nominee The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. So Amanda, why do you have Crazy Rich Asians for costumes?
I'm going to switch. I know I'm going to take it out next week or in a couple of days, but part of me just feels like for a modern set film, it deserves the attention of those lush costumes, especially the wedding sequence. It reminds me of The Devil Wears Prada. You don't think it should be nominated and then it still shows up. I just would love to see a modern film that isn't La La Land in there, personally. I just would really love to see it happen. I know it's not. I'm probably going to go ahead and go back to Bohemian Rhapsody in a couple days, although I'm not that impressed with it as a costume film. So yeah, I know I shouldn't be making crazy predictions.
Okay, so Rob, why do you have Bohemian Rhapsody?
The fact of the matter is, for me, regardless whether I like the film or not, and I've already been tortured on the internet for my comments about this film. I've seen it now, and I still think it's not worthy of so many nominations. But I expect it to be represented in a lot of the below the lines. I really do, and even in cinematography, I'm a bit worried. So I think with costume design, I don't see how the costumes here are that worthy of a nomination, but a lot of the costume designers will most likely feel that way. So I just feel like it's going to be here. To me, this one is another no-brainer because the other four, I think, are generally all going to make it in. I agree with Amanda. I would love to see a contemporary film make it into this category. They're the ones that I always look forward to seeing, like I Am Love and La La Land and others. But I don't see how it's going to happen this year. I think Bohemian Rhapsody is pretty much almost assured of a nomination, which is really kind of crazy to say at this stage because we never know what will happen. That being said, though, I think Black Panther is going to win this one actually, and
Whoa.
well, that's what I think. That's a subjective opinion. So I think it will win.
No, I mean, I thought like up to 3 months ago I'd had it in the bag, but like now I think it's really got a race between itself and the favorite, and it's just so.
I think the two Queen films will have trouble trying to compete with each other, and Mary Poppins Returns just seems to have really fizzled out over the last couple of weeks. I don't know how much support it has.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that it has at least support in this branch because of Sandy Powell, who has gotten double nominated multiple times throughout the last 20 years.
Did she do Fantastic Beasts again?
No, that was Colleen Atwood, yeah.
I get them confused.
Well, they are, yeah, yeah.
They've won so many times.
Right. I think that in terms of Bohemian Rhapsody getting nominated, it's really because of Freddie Mercury. I mean, they should thank God that they were designing costumes for a guy who was such a flamboyant and eccentric dresser. That I think is what helps them get into this category. In terms of Crazy Rich Asians, I keep trying to find places to put that movie, and it's always just in like 6th or 7th place for me. This would seem like one of the places that it could get in, but I think that, they usually just tend to go period here, and, they might just, default to things like Mary Queen of Scots, and certainly the favorite, Mary Poppins. Black Panther getting in would be, pretty great. That is,
well, it is modern.
That is technically a contemporary film, so yeah. We should. I guess that's about as far as they're going to stretch it.
And their costume designer hasn't been nominated in like 21 years, so this would be a very big moment for her. I would love for her to finally win. I think what she did in creating this world was very beautiful, especially that opening sequence of when he's basically coronated.
Yeah,
that was very beautiful and gorgeous. And I just would like the Crazy Rich Asian costumes to get in over A Star Is Born's costumes. I just want to say that.
Well, I don't think either of them will get in. So
I know, but if I see A Star Is Born in the top 5 and instead of Crazy Rich Asians, I would be like, that is just a slap in the face to a film that wastes time thinking out how their costumes tell a story, especially that wedding.
My problem with Bohemian Rhapsody is I don't think it's period enough. I think the same thing kind of hurt I, Tonya last year, which got a BAFTA nomination as well. But yeah, they're just taking place in the 80s. They're not in the 1600s or something. I've got The Ballad of Buster Scruggs just because it got that out of nowhere BAFTA nomination. And I do feel like Netflix is running kind of maybe a stealth campaign for that one. And maybe some people have seen it, like it showed up randomly in stunts at SAG. So I feel like that'll manifest somewhere possibly. I don't have Colleen Atwood for Fantastic Beasts because, first of all, her win for Fantastic Beasts was through the entire Academy. It didn't necessarily mean that she would have won if it had just been the costume designers voting, which is what's happening for the nominations. And that film didn't even get a nomination for like fantasy at the Costume Designers Guild. So I feel like it's really off the radar. And we do see sometimes where, a film will do really well, like Skyfall or The Dark Knight or Star Trek, and then the immediate sequel will just completely fall flat.
I do wonder. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, of your Ballad of Buster Scruggs prediction, I think that is something that could definitely happen. It's in like my 6th place right now. I know that anecdotally, that Netflix is really focused on the below the line aspects for that movie. Certainly costumes and production design and score. So I think that could definitely happen. And that is, Mary Zophres, who's a 2-time nominee for La La Land and True Grit. So certainly she's a name that the costume designer branch would get behind.
I think there is room for an upset because I wonder for something to surprise us, because I wonder if Mary Poppins Returns is a little like been there, done that. Like it's got a pretty clear blueprint of what it should look like is my point. Like maybe they're like, it's maybe a little bit more difficult. Maybe we throw the Battle of Buster Scruggs, or maybe, let's throw a contemporary one in there, or maybe it doesn't get the first place votes it needs to crack the 5.
Yeah, I had the
same. Of the top 3, that's the one I'm worried about the most.
Yeah, I agree, Amanda. And I was thinking actually the other day when I was trying to formulate what I thought would be nominated, I was even trying to consider whether First Man had a possible chance in this category. Because it's period and it has some of the space stuff, and so I think, and like something out of this world like Suspiria could make it in, or something completely unexpected. So,
that would be lovely.
Like Suspiria wasn't that well received generally, but it was for some of its crafts, particularly for its makeup, and which we'll talk about no doubt soon. I'm thinking the costumes could be something that we might want to just keep our eye on, given Luca Guadagnino has obviously his films have made it in here before. Anyway, this one's a really interesting category. It always is costume design. It's a really interesting category.
One more movie that I think I'd love to see show up here, because I think it would be a sign of support for the movie, is Black Klansman. Which they've gone 70s before, and obviously this one has like all that period garb that Ron Stallworth and his girlfriend has to wear, and it's some really in-depth work that I don't think has gotten a lot of credit, and so I think that would be something that would be a sign of support for that movie.
Yeah, and look out for something like the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. Sometimes they just go. I mean, it's
I know.
It's beautifully costumed. Yeah. Sometimes you just see those random one-off nominations where like it doesn't make sense in the full Best Picture race, but you see some. Yeah. Look at the costumes. You're like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense costume-wise. It's in the top 10. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
A Wrinkle in Time too.
Yeah. Okay, Rob, I'll go to you for Best Film Editing. You do not have the front runner Roma in your predictions. You also don't have The Favorite, which is also favored for a nomination.
Yeah.
Why are you so out there?
Well, I wish I had something really scientific to say, but I went through these very carefully yesterday, and the 5 that I have, A Star Is Born, First Man, Vice, Black Klansman, and Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm feeling quite confident about, and I expect that we will see some really shocking surprises next week. And I think the editing category, and forgive me because it is the crack of dawn literally here in Sydney, so I'm forgetting what happened last year and the year before, but it's always the editing category that trips me up. I always go with the consensus, and last year, for example, Tonya made it in. I don't think I had that in. It wasn't a complete surprise, but the year before it happened to me as well, where the consensus choices weren't the nominees. And so I thought, I'm going to go with a couple of No Guts, No Glories. And in this category, although Roma seems so obvious, and as does The Favorite, I'm just not going to put them in. And I think that could be possible. You know what? The thing is, we all think we kind of have a feeling as to what's going to happen next week. But honestly, if you look back to last year, there's a lot of wrong in what we were all predicting. And so I just don't think there's any real harm in just having a crack. So that's exactly what I'm doing.
So, Rob, you actually got all 5 last year. It's well done.
Oh, did I? So I did. How do you know this stuff? You're like, yeah, that's insane that you actually.
He's got our predictions up. That's why.
Going back and
So,
forth. The
okay,
year
so
before,
then I
not as
must have been
good. Only
thinking
3 out
about
of
last
5.
year.
So
I must be thinking about the years before, but I always find editing to be the killer for me because, and then I just can already see it happening. Any film that misses in editing, as we all know, because we're all feverish Oscar watchers, any film that misses in this category, we are then going to see the articles about how it's going to struggle in Best Picture. So they all need to make it in this category. It's very important. I can't see how Vice doesn't make it in. I'm thinking First Man is going to do very, very well below the line. I think A Star Is Born is going to be the big winner on nominations morning. Black Klansman, I can see that happening. And Bohemian Rhapsody, as I said earlier, is going to just kill it. It's going to kill it, unfortunately or fortunately, however, whatever you want to think about that film. And so
Just
I didn't
being a
have enough
snob. That movie is fun.
Well, so that's the thing, right? Like, just on Bohemian Rhapsody, I can see why people love it, and there's a lot about the film that I think is really admirable. But I personally just didn't like it, and I wanted more from it, and I wanted other things from it. And that's just subjective opinion. So, whoever in the comments who wants to just tell me that I'm wrong is fine, because that's your opinion. But I really don't know how the editing of Bohemian Rhapsody is any better, subjectively, than Roma or The Favourite. But I still think it's going to make it in above those two films.
Well, it's more obvious editing, I think, because of all those musical sequences and especially the ending with Live Aid, you know, like it's very flashy, just like on the beat music video type editing. And I switched it out as you were talking. I put that in over Roma because I think that.
Well, I got to refresh my page with your predictions up.
Well, I'll be honest. I thought I already had it in there, and it was only when I was looking at my predictions I saw I didn't. Roma, the thing, I'm actually surprised Roma's the front runner because it's very subtle. It's very subtle. You know what I mean? It's very slow, methodical.
There are hardly any cuts, like Birdman.
Yeah, and that's it. If it's going to miss in a major tech category, I feel like this would be the one. You know, because it doesn't jump out. I think Black Klansman, that editing jumps out at me. Vice certainly jumps out, you know. I don't have The Favorite in either. I have First Man in as well, like you do, even if it doesn't get a Best Picture nomination. I think, again, it's just like it's obvious, quick, in your face, Saving Private Ryan style editing from an Oscar winner, Tom Cross. And I also have A Star Is Born in there as well, just because I think it's, you know, it's more traditional, but it also is like editing, you know, music, performances, montages. It's all that stuff that they like. So I feel like Roma and The Favorite are going to struggle in these two categories specifically, even if they end up getting a ton of nominations.
See, I think First Man's not going to get Best Picture, so I'm kind of wishy-washy on how many below the line nominations it can take up. And this is one where I think it could miss. And I also place in there because I think like The Big Short, it's not edited in a way that I find appealing. I think that's the biggest problem of the film is the way it's put together. I didn't like that rolling credits in the middle. Like I didn't think it was cute. Whereas I think Black Panther or Black Klansman, they're well put together films. So it also depends on how many nominations either of those films are going to get. And Black Panther has the potential to be the big tech film this year and the one with the most nominations.
But it really should have gotten in at the American Cinema Editors. Yeah. I mean, if it was going to win, it should have gotten in there. Because
I don't think it's going to win. I think it could sneak into a top 5.
But I feel like it. You know, it didn't get in at Critics' Choice either. Obviously, it didn't get in at BAFTA, and it just makes me think that, you know, they're not, for whatever reason, like that should have been an easy get for them. You know, and the fact that it hasn't shown up anywhere at all, just kind of, it feels like it should be a red flag.
I like the Bohemian Rhapsody one. I think I might put that one in there because the editing, you know, when you think of editing, like I always like to think of like Whiplash, where it's so obviously edited. Like it has more edits in 20 minutes than Birdman has in the entire film. Like
I should
that
say
one for a reason.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the Bohemian Rhapsody idea.
I should say on your, the First Man thing about it not getting a Best Picture nomination. This is a category where, last year 2 of the nominees were not Best Picture nominees, so I don't know if that necessarily is a ding against it. I think First
But I
Man
don't
is.
think second. I think second might be too high. I really think that might be too high.
Second. Oh well, no, I mean I don't have it. I don't necessarily think it's going to win, but yeah, because I think that's only happened once in the expanded field with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So
That
that might
that
be,
was an expanded field, was it?
yeah, it was. Yeah, that
Okay,
was,
yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
that was
it was
like the first
2011.
year.
Yeah, so I mean that might be a little bit of wishful thinking, but and I think First Man is kind of like in that 9th or 10th spot for Best Picture. You know what I mean? Like it's on the bubble. So I think this is a category where it kind of seems like it'll show up.
Yeah, it did just win the Critics' Choice Award for Best Editing. So I've got it in here since I assume it'll get, #1 votes also with the Academy. And then I have Roma and A Star is Born just because, working backwards, if they're going to win Best Picture, then they kind of need to get in here. Although I really liked your guys' argument about Roma and how it doesn't actually have very many cuts. I have Mission Impossible just because I think
Yes.
yes. That's very
would be
loud
so happy
editing.
that happened, Riley. Yeah.
I'm very surprised that it didn't get in at BAFTA since they do tend to go for more of the obvious editing and not so much just lining it up with Best Picture. Like a few years ago, I got really excited when Spotlight missed out in BAFTA editing. And I thought, oh, it's done at the Oscars, as it won't get editing at the Oscars. But the Oscars, they like to line up Best Picture and Best Editing. But Mission Impossible, I feel like everybody saw it and it was much better liked than all the other movies. I feel like this will be its kind of Bourne Ultimatum or Skyfall moment where after the franchise has never really shown up at the Oscars, suddenly it does.
I hope so.
I love that.
It should be in cinematography as well. In fact, I've nominated in sound, cinematography, visual effects, editing. I just think it was the best one of a very, very great franchise.
Yeah,
So,
it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Best Makeup and Hairstyling, where we already know the top 7 contenders. And for some reason, there are only going to be 3 nominees in this category and no others. So I've got Vice, Mary Queen of Scots, and Stan and Ollie, because usually this category is not so much about makeup or hairstyling. It's just about prosthetics. And those 3 I thought really stood out with, turning famous people into ugly people.
I might have to rethink Scott's because I think I have Bohemian Rhapsody currently in its spot.
For the teeth.
Because of the prosthetic teeth. Yeah, I'm like, that's at least something new. But, they did put that like plaster. But I feel like with Mary Queen of Scots, it's also like we've seen so many movies about Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And they've
Maybe
won this category in the past, where it's like,
Elizabeth.
how hard is this when it's been done so many times recently in like the past 20 years?
Yeah, the costume and makeup team from the Elizabeth movies also worked on Mary Queen of Scots.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
ridiculous.
Which almost feels like cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like, that wouldn't be allowed at like the Tony Awards. Like,
But so I have Vice and Stan and Ollie. I think they're obvious to me. Suspiria is the other one, and I've been umming and ahhing for a while because I did have the Swedish film in there. I've completely forgotten what it's called. Border. Thank you. I had that in there for a while, only because of the Sweden seems to be just very well represented in this category over the last few years. But then I can't imagine how they're going to pass up Suspiria. I just think the makeup and hairstyling in that film is very obvious. And I'm still very annoyed that there are only three nominees in this category. That's insane. Like, it needs to be 5, like everything else. So,
yeah, you think that eventually the makeup branch of the Academy would say, enough is enough. We want 5 nominees too.
yeah.
Of all the
Already
rule
compared
changes
to
they've
Find
had.
Hair.
Yeah. I don't know what to. The only one that I look at and like, okay, that's obviously going to get in is Vice,
Yeah.
and everything else I like I just put in Suspiria because Rob, I agree with you. I mean, it's just such incredible work, and I don't understand how you pass that up. You know, and I look at this like, all right, well, maybe Bohemian Rhapsody, maybe Border, maybe Stan and Ollie, Black Panther. You know, like I just have no idea. So right now, I'm
like been my problem since they've expanded the Best Picture race is that all of these categories, it's like if you have a Best Picture nominee in the field, it's almost like, well, there's your winner almost. So it's kind of for me like, well, I might as well put Black Panther in here because it's more likely to get a Best Picture nomination than Stan and Ollie or Suburbia. So I think it kind of gets a little bit of a boost because this is one of the places where it could pick up a nomination. So,
but again, I don't know how well that movie's going to do overall on the
I'm
day.
really worried. So worried.
Yeah.
Well, Gold Derby right now has it in 10 categories: picture, adapted screenplay,
And we've never
costume design, production design, both of the sound categories, score, song, and I'm forgetting one other, makeup and hairstyling. So
we've never been wrong before.
we've never been wrong.
It's weird though because it made all the short lists, which suggested a lot of
It did.
support. But then it's been kind of underperforming at the guilds. Like we talked about how it didn't get ASC or ACE, even though like ACE loves Marvel. They even nominated Deadpool 2 this year.
Yeah.
But didn't Deadpool 2 compete in the comedy category?
Yes.
Yeah, that I think that might be the difference. I don't know.
That's the caveat. But I'm very worried about Black Panther. I wish it would be nominated in everything. I love it so much, but not. Even I want
not
to be
gonna
nominated in supporting actress, but I don't think it's going to do very
That
well.
would be that would give you the go ahead to predict it to win Best Picture. If it gets a supporting actress nomination,
I know, right? It was and it's
not
gonna be
supporting actor, supporting actress.
actress. Yeah,
Yeah, then you can predict it to win Best Picture.
it's not going to happen though.
I like your Suspiria prediction just because I feel like they love making up Tilda Swinton in this category.
Mhm.
They really do, right? That's a
And-
very good point. I was gonna
And they
say
don't
that.
really like making up Margot Robbie since I, Tonya missed last year.
Yeah.
I wasn't that impressed with the makeup in I, Tonya, though. This is like plaster Paris on her face. It doesn't move.
But what you said before is so 100%, Amanda. Like, it's so been there, done that. This is Jenny Shercourt. I completely forgot about that. And she won for Elizabeth. And we've seen it so many times. We've seen it on Judi Dench's face. And I don't think Mary Queen of Scots is going to get anything apart from costumes. And I think they need to be a bit worried about the been there, done that thing, which you also said about Mary Poppins Returns, which was also absolutely the case for that film too.
Yeah, and I think, the teeth of Freddie Mercury, okay, that's probably enough to like they made over their main star, and he's got some different hairstyles, so okay, here you go.
I think that could come in, and that could be at the expense of Stan and Ollie, for example.
Well, let's not.
Yeah, again.
Let's not forget about Brian May's hair, shall we?
Right.
I forget the actor's name, but
Remember they made Mike Myers look unrecognizable. So I mean, they
technically, yeah. That was technically not Jan Sewell. That was Mike Myers' personal makeup person.
Regardless, they probably are thinking about that. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
They're not going, well, that was Mike Myers' makeup. No, I think they're like, well, they did the main star, like Vice is all about Christian Bale. Bohemian Rhapsody is all about Rami Malek, and they did transform him makeup and hairstyle wise. So it's probably like just an easy pickup for the film.
Yeah,
it's even Sam Rockwell in Vice. Like, it's not prosthetic necessarily, but what they do to
the
him
hair
very subtly really, really helps him get into the character of George W. And
Steve Carell too.
Whatever you think about Vice, sorry,
Steve Carell too.
Didn't they pin Tyler Perry's ears or something? Like they did something to Tyler Perry.
I mean, he really looks like Colin Powell. Like, it's very well done. Whether you think the film is good or not, the makeup and hairstyling is incredibly well done in Vice, and I expect that to win.
And let's not forget also, this category is a perfect example of year after year. You have movies, not to compare Vice to these movies, but you have picks like Norbit and Click. Because this is not best makeup in a good movie. This is best makeup in a movie. Right. So, oftentimes they
and Margot Robbie, a film with Margot Robbie did win. Remember, Suicide Squads did win makeup. So there is still a chance
Yeah, I'm still upset about
Yeah.
that one because it should have been Star Trek. But anyway,
I predicted that to win, so I was not upset because I'm like, that's the most visible film in the lot. So yeah, I wasn't too upset.
All right, so we'll move on to Best Production Design, where Amanda, Rob, and I are going with the 5 frontrunners, which are Black Panther, First Man, Mary Poppins Returns, The Favorite, and Roma, not necessarily in that order. And Zach, you do not have First Man because you have Bohemian Rhapsody. Why is that?
Ooh, I like that idea.
Well, I mean, it really just has to do with how strong it's been showing up at the guilds lately. You know, and again, I mean, it's sort of like the queen of it all, you know, just how like Freddie Mercury's house and, you know, all these concert venues and, you know, it's like 15 years spanning work that they've got to do in this film, you know, recreating Live Aid, all this stuff. Whereas I think First Man, you know, that is Nathan Crowley, who's a frequent Academy presence for all his Christopher Nolan films. So it would make sense that he would show up here. But, you know, sort of going back to the whole been there, done that thing of, you know, like we've seen a dozen NASA movies before. You know, so does that really, is there anything that stands out to them about this work? You know, I don't know. I think I've got Bohemian Rhapsody in there just as sort of it's, you know, if they like that movie, it makes sense that it would show up here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, the one thing about the concerts is that I don't know how different those venues are going to look from decade to decade, depending
Right
on their upkeep. But I agree. I think it could sneak in. Black Panther would be my choice because they created an entire world. But I know The Favorite is kind of like your typical film who wins costume and production design and sweeps.
Well, we should say that, I mean, there is a precedent for Black Panther to win both of those awards, and that is Mad Max Fury Road, right?
I'm hoping that it does that.
I don't remember quite what was in the race that year, but
Danish Girl.
Yeah, the Danish Girl, right? So that's a perfect example of like a typical Academy film that would win in those categories, being beaten by something more genre, sci-fi, you know, creating an entire world, right?
Yeah, and it won 5 Oscars, I think. So it got 10 nominations. So we could see it equal that number.
I'm not quite sure Black Panther is going to do like Mad Max, but I think that those production design and costumes seems like something that it could win.
Yeah.
Which we won't be able to see on the telecast, but you know.
Well, yeah, that's right. Kind of crazy.
If we're not having a host, can't we have all the categories? Like, come on, people.
You never know; they might change their mind. I think Black Panther. This is the award that is most likely to win. I remember watching it for the 5th time the other day, and there were some scenes where I literally said out loud, "Wow, look at the production design!" Like a complete nerd. So I think that's a given. I think First Man, The Favorite, and even Roma. I only put Roma in a couple of days ago because I started thinking about the work that went into recreating that part of the city. So even though it's not necessarily like flashy or unusual or like design avant-garde, it's still very well done because it's so authentic. So that's there. The one that worries me is Mary Poppins Returns because of the been there done that factor. And I've had Fantastic Beasts in for a very long time because whatever you think about that film or that franchise, the design is unbelievable, and it's been nominated. All its previous iterations have been nominated here before, so I just can't see how that's not going to get nominated. But I did take it out yesterday for Mary Poppins Returns, and I'm a bit worried about that.
Yeah, Mary Poppins Returns kind of reminds me of The Greatest Showman last year too, which was very showy and a very popular musical, but it was only nominated for song. So I wonder if Mary Poppins is going to underperform just because there's no passion for it and it won't get the #1 votes. Yeah.
The irony is it lost all these categories to My Fair Lady. So the first
we all have Roma in 5th because it's not really the kind of film that gets nominated in this category, but it just has been getting nominated for production design everywhere.
And he's a previous Oscar winner too. He's the guy who did Pan's Labyrinth, which I think helps. One film that I would look out for here would be Crazy Rich Asians. I think The Birdcage showed up here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
22 years ago, and that kind of seems like an obvious parallel because it, like the costumes, it is very flashy and colorful. It helps that it's about rich people, but and set
But
in an
that wedding
exotic
sequence
location.
and that,
Yeah, exactly.
that
So,
wedding is beautiful, and
exactly.
it deserves. I think like, and I love A Star Is Born, but I feel like A Star Is Born would be a lazy choice, where Crazy Rich Asians would be a thoughtful choice at looking at the production design.
Yeah, I think Star Is Born it's going to struggle to get into something like here and costumes just because it's not on the nose kind of it's not like apparent design, right? It's very good for like it's very it's been thought out, but it's not it's not like Mary Poppins Returns or something like that where you like notice a production design.
Or even like Crazy Rich Asians, where it's
Exactly,
like
yeah.
the costumes are very much a part of the film.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to best score. I want to ask either Amanda or Rob about why you have Black Klansman in your predictions. It was nominated by BAFTA, or actually, Zach, you have it too. So yes,
I do, yeah.
See, it was nominated by BAFTA, which really surprised me because I don't remember the film really having much of a score.
What? We'll go to Spotify, Riley, and listen to it.
Yeah, and I
really,
think
really
that
good.
Go ahead.
and I think if Spike Lee is going to win Best Director, the film needs below the line support because he needs the votes. And this is one of the places where I think the film is flashy enough that it could get a nomination. I remember the score; it's very meticulously thought out. So for me, it makes
beautiful.
sense.
It's Terrence Blanchard he's a genius, right? And he should have been nominated for 25th Hour, and this is his opportunity now to maybe. I know this one's a very competitive category, and by the way, score is the category that I care about the most. It always is. I listen to these like religiously, and I think about this really carefully. And Black Klansman is beautiful. I really recommend you stream it on Spotify if you can, because it's fantastic. And I have it in fifth because I still think it's not necessarily a shoe-in, but the BAFTA nomination really made me happy and gave me the confidence to put it in.
And
I was surprised that Mary Poppins Returns wasn't disqualified because I did hear a lot of the original score in there, and that again worries me because I'm like, I remember hearing "Let's Fly a Kite," and I'm kind of like, they might be like, you've had a lot of help.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, though, if they didn't disqualify the guy from The Artist for using 10 minutes worth of the Vertigo score, then it's just about what movie they like, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, it's just the been there, done that.
Yeah, I think that I mean, for me, why I have Black Klansman in there, it's Terrence Blanchard is a guy who's been around for a long time, and he's been such a vital part of Spike Lee's films. And he's sort of in that like Carter Burwell arena where like he's got a lot of credits and he's never been nominated before. And I think like this movie having Best Picture buzz could help him get that first nomination. And I mean, it's the score has so much to do with the impact of that movie, especially at the end. I just have a hard time seeing them ignoring that. The one that I do think that
I'll just say I have been convinced, so I've taken out Mary Poppins.
What will you take out, Riley? What will you
Mary
take
Poppins.
out? Okay. Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, for me, that my fifth spot is sort of 50-50 between Mary Poppins and Black Panther. When Black Panther started underperforming at some of the guilds, yeah, well, I think it all has, again, like I don't know how well it's going to do. The score for Black Panther is really incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Of all things, it should be production design score.
It's epic, and it's it's
amazing.
It's got scope, and it's it's got intimacy to it, but also it's like, oh, Mary Poppins is right there as well. And you kind of look at, you've got like past winner Justin Hurwitz in there. Yeah, Nicholas Breitel, who could be vulnerable. You got Alexander Desplat, who they love. Carter Burwell for Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and Malco Beltrami for Quiet Place. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of flexibility in here, and the music branch, they can surprise us sometimes.
They can.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't count out First Man being snubbed if it's not going to have a great below the line Oscars, because it's not
Oh,
going to get
really?
the best picture. Well, it's not going to get the best picture. I mean, I could see how it's just like it might get in, but I think it might not be the winner. That's what I'm
If it
saying.
gets one nomination next week, it'll be here. I would think.
Yeah, you're probably right, but I just think, like, you know, its chances of winning might be hurt if it's not a Best Picture nominee. So we might be over.
Yeah, you have a point. But I just want to give it a plug, because I was a bit skeptical about this nomination weeks ago, and then when I started listening to the score, I really, again, recommend that everybody listen to it. The theremin stuff is so interesting, and it's such a great score. It really is one of the best scores I've listened to in years. That's how good it is, and I can't imagine. I think it's going to win at this stage, but Beale Street worries me because I mean, Nicholas Britell, hasn't he come a long way in the last few years? Amazing composer, and Isle of Dogs is a really interesting score that I can't imagine just not making it in again. This category is so fascinating. There's like 15 scores that are vying for 5 slots. Well, you know what I mean.
I know.
Sorry, the short list. I meant 10. I was hoping Annihilation would make it in, because I think that score is so different. It's not very traditional. It's more an oral kind of weirdo oral thing, but it's so amazing. It should be here as well. I'm so glad it made the short list.
There's some really interesting films on this short list, I have to say. I mean, like Christopher Willis for The Death of Stalin, Brian Tyler for Crazy Rich Asians. Like, it's really nice to see that. It's really nice to see that they're reaching outside of the expected, group of people, and because then you listen to those scores on their own, you're like, oh yeah, this is really good. Like, this is worthy of being on a short list and possibly even a nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say overall it's pretty underwhelming year for score. But I'll say about First Man, though, is that it won the Golden Globe, it won the Critics' Choice, the Hollywood Film Award, the Satellite Award, was not nominated by BAFTA for score, even though they quite liked the film. They nominated Claire Foy and the screenplay. I think what helps it, though,
British.
for the Oscars, though, is that A Star is Born is eligible at BAFTA. So if it wins that, that's not a knock on First Man, really.
But I would remind you that last year, only 3 awards where there was a Best Picture nominee did not go to a Best Picture. There were only 3 categories where a Best Picture nominee lost to another film that wasn't. And score was not one of them. So it's kind of a numbers game as far as, like, let's see what BAFTA does as far as who wins.
Well, again, I'm 50-50 on that movie. I think that movie's on the bubble of getting in. So, I mean,
I don't think it's getting in, but I think that, like, below the line, it could have a.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving over to Best Song, which is another category where we know the short list of 15. I guess my question, first of all, is that the Gold Derby odds have 2 songs from Mary Poppins Returns. Is it getting either, both, neither?
I just have the Places Where Lost Things Go. I don't have Trip a Little Light Fantastic.
See, I have Trip a Little Light Fantastic, and it makes me wonder.
Oh, the Lin-Manuel Miranda song. That's a good one.
It makes me wonder, though, actually, if it might be in trouble to get none, because, like, I've heard from people who, like, they have one or the other. They don't have both.
Yeah.
And so vote splitting.
Well, the good news is that if it is Trip a Little Light Fantastic, Lin-Manuel Miranda probably would perform, whereas I don't think Emily Blunt would. So if that matters to you, yeah, I'm just saying. But I really like The Girl in the Movie. I want it in. I think if Netflix had ran any semblance of a campaign for Jennifer Aniston, she'd be in supporting actress right now. But that's my opinion. But yeah, I think Girl in the Movies. Dolly Parton shows up in this category enough that she should be able to get in.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I agree. And in fact, I think the other four are generally locked for me. I think I'll Fight will make it. Diane Warren, like, she's been nominated 5,000 times and she still has not won. She should have won 3 years ago. Hopefully one day she'll win. She won't be winning this year, but at least her co-writer for the last time will win for Shallow. That is a guarantee. And quite rightly, if A Star Is Born has to win anything, it must win song, in my opinion. And also, All the Stars is a great one. Any other year,
I love All the Stars. This is like a Grammy category this year.
What
like,
a great category. Such a good,
this is one where I want to see all the 5 nominees performed. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't care if they're 1-minute clips of each of them. I still want to see Bradley Cooper sing. I doubt that's going to happen, but you know.
Yeah.
It could.
Wait, you want to see a performance of All Fight? Really?
I want to see 1.5 minutes of it. I don't want to see the full.
They could get RBG to do that, maybe.
Yeah. Well, she's healthy now, so she can probably make it. She could do it. She could do it in her sleep.
I'm holding out hope for a couple of kind of outside possibilities here. You know, Suspirium from Suspiria by Tom York. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be really cool if it did, especially since he was left off the short list for score. And also, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this, but Oyet from Sorry to Bother You, written by the film's director, Boots Riley. I think it plays really well over the end of that movie. And it'd just be kind of cool for them to, you know, they don't go hip hop very often. And it would just
well, they're going hip hop.
Yeah, I'd like for them to go, a little bit more as well. You know, 'cause Kendrick, Kendrick is he's helped by, his film being, a big contender. So
and it's really nice to see, like, especially A Star Is Born and Black Panther being very strategic about this, because they each had at least one more song they could have submitted. Yeah. I actually like Pray For Me better, but All the Stars is great. But they both were very strategic and wanted to set themselves up for the win, which is kind of interesting when you see Mary Poppins trying to get 2 win.
Yeah, I don't like that they did that, because I don't think anybody was going to vote for whatever other song competed against Shallow, and All the Stars isn't winning anyway. So,
well, I think that I think they could have gotten it. I mean, I think, there was always a possibility that Pray For Me or a second song.
No, I mean, they should have submitted because they would have been nominated. I don't think it would have hurt their chances to win. I think they just cost themselves a nomination at this point.
Well, it might be an example for future films to be strategic instead of trying to take up 2 spots to take up 2 spots. So at least we'll have at least 4 separate films in this category instead of 3. So.
For the last slot, I went with The Ballad of Buster Scruggs again. Haven't seen the movie, but I thought that song was funny. I just couldn't predict Triple Little Light Fantastic because that one makes me mad.
Why does that song make you mad, Riley?
It just wasn't very good.
Well, I think it is vulnerable. I think they're both vulnerable. I'm not sure if I replace it with the song from Boy Erased, which has shown up at the Golden Globe.
Oh, yeah, that's reminding me. Yes, of course. Why shouldn't that make it in? That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Troye Sivan, Aussie. Yeah, he should be in there. Let's hope that. Yeah. Let's hope that we see that.
I hope he is, but it sounds like he's kind of half asleep in that song.
Okay.
I don't know. I just thought that it seemed like a very typical Globes thing to do, to nominate, somebody like Troye Sivan.
Right.
So, right. But yeah, I hope that he does get the nomination. All right, so we'll move over to Best Sound Editing, which had the same nominees as Best Sound Mixing last year, so we'll see if that happens again. I'll just pull up the Gold Derby odds. We have First Man, Black Panther, A Quiet Place, A Star Is Born, and Roma. So how do we feel about those? Where's Mission Impossible?
It's in my predictions. So
is it? Oh, good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's more just out of defiance because I want it to get nominated for something, and I feel like this would be an obvious one.
I don't know about Roma. I think that's definitely vulnerable to either Mission Impossible or potentially Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well, I should say, in terms of like musical films, which despite
Usually
what the
sound
Golden,
mixing.
despite what the Golden Globes say, let's just call A Star Is Born and Bohemian Rhapsody musicals for argument's sake. You know, they tend to struggle in sound editing, but they do, yeah. So I think that could be a dent against them.
Right. Yeah. I think everyone should also keep an eye out for Ready Player One. I think that's going to get a couple of nominations at least next week, and this could be where it might do well. So we'll see. A Quiet Place as well, I hope gets in here. I think it should be nominated all over the place. It's my second favorite film of last year, and I think this could be it. Maybe sound mixing. We'll talk about that in a second. But what a great
Yeah, I
film.
think you're right. I think A Quiet Place could sneak in.
I think it could potentially win. I mean, you know, it's like it's so much about the sound, and I think that you know you're always when you're predicting these categories, you have to think, all right, what does an actor think good sound is?
Yeah,
and you know, so I mean, since this movie is all about the fact that they can't talk and all about the fact that you know sound is deadly, that could potentially help it.
Well, some of us last year thought Mother would get in because it had no score. It was all about the sound too, and it missed. So it is one of those things. Again, when we look at like the winner, who's in a Best Picture nominee, and what's the loudest film, like, and that could help out something like Black Panther because it's loud, got all those action sequences in it. But yeah, I really love A Quiet Place.
Well, First Man too, I think, is like the obvious because of all that space stuff and it's you know all the clanging around and you know like I can see why that's the front runner right now. I do wonder about Roma as well because I think that if you're watching it at home and not in a theater, not to be one of those elitist types who say that you have to watch it in a theater, but because I can't stand those people. But I feel like you might. But when you do see it at a theater and you've got the surround sound, it is more like, oh, okay, I see the work that they did here to kind of like immerse you in the movie. But
most of those people are watching these films on screeners anyway. So, like, your argument doesn't help.
I'm saying that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that it might not be obvious to people, you know, so it might hurt that film and it could miss out for something more obvious like a Mission Impossible or even, you know, Ready Player One, as Rob said.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that Roma did not get nominations from BAFTA or the Cinema Audio Society for its sound when that's often one of the things that's most praised about it. And then what's tricky about this category is that we don't have the nominations from the Guild at the time of this video recording. So we just have to, we're not able to cheat off anything. And what about in Best Sound Mixing? Do we think it'll just be the same 5, or might we see, these more music-driven films like Bohemian Rhapsody and A Star Is Born sneak in?
I do, and I think also look out for like Mary Poppins if they're really going music crazy.
I have Bohemian and Star Is Born and sound mixing, and then I also have Quiet Place, Black Panther, and First Man translating over from sound editing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't just combine these two categories because
we have to have 2 categories.
They've had 2 different audio categories almost since the beginning.
I know, but you know, it's like
had sound effect editing for a while, and we know what they are, the differences. But makeup gets 3 nominations, and the sound people get 10. And I just don't think that's very good.
Okay. Well, apparently the sound people are a lot more powerful than the makeup and hairstylists.
Just have like one award for sound, you award the editors and the mixers, because like the people voting don't understand the difference, and I think like that's
and even if they do understand the difference, it's just why.
It's like no other branch has 2 different categories, like except for music. You know, they got song and score, but you know, it's just
and the acting branch.
Well, they're the powerful ones. They're the ones
and the writing branch. Like they're not giving out.
You could say, writing, who cares if it's adapted? And you could say, who cares if you're female or male? But I think for sound editing, sound mixing, unless you are in that industry, a lot of people do not understand the difference between Foley and between the mix of
and that's why we see sweeps so often in those fields.
Yeah.
Like if you want to predict sound mixing and sound editing, pick the same film almost every time, and you'll do fine.
Yeah, I think the difference is just music does better in sound mixing, and then also sound mixing tends to be a bit more best picture-y since it's less reliant on effects and just general sound.
Yeah.
Okay, so switching over to visual effects, which is our final category in this slugfest. Today we got the Visual Effects Society nominations, and
good. I haven't seen them.
surprisingly, oh well, Rob, Black Panther was shut out, even though it is our front runner for the Oscar, and it just claimed the Critics' Choice. So this is only the branch voting for it, so it would be in trouble.
That's fascinating, and that's exactly what I was hoping you would say, only because as much as I love this film dearly, I thought the visual effects were terrible, and I've been very annoyed that this film has been winning things from various groups that probably don't know what they're talking about, and it's been the front runner in the category according to Gold Derby for months, and it's in my number one because I expect most of the schlubs in the Academy who don't know what they're talking about will vote for it. But rewatch that film and watch the big action sequence towards the end with the rhinos and all that, and it's just not as good as the other contenders. It's just not. And that's my opinion, right? I still think it's going to get nominated, but it's fascinating that you just said that it wasn't nominated by the VFX Guild
in any
because
category.
they know what they're talking about. That's insane. That means
I still think it might get an Oscar nomination, and if it does win, the good thing is like Daniel Sudeik. He's a past 8-time nominee. Like this might be his chance because he's like always nominated for these Marvel movies and never wins. So as far as like, I'm sure he might not want this to be his career achievement, but
of all the of all the great things that movie does tech-wise, and people on the internet, please don't come after me for saying this. The visual effects aren't its strongest suit.
I'll give you his email address if you'd like.
It's always Twitter. It's going to be my Twitter handle that gets all the freaking hate mail. I could see it missing, honestly, if it didn't do well at the Visual Effects Society. I think Avengers: Infinity War looks good. I think Ready Player One looks good. I think Solo is probably going to get in because they like Star Wars.
I think that's going to have a trouble because that movie bombed. That movie is almost toxic to nominate.
I know, but at the same time, it's like again, like this is the same people who nominated Kong Skull Island. Like they're.
That's right.
I know, but Kong Skull Island made money. Like
Welcome to Morrowind as well. Like that,
that would be a better choice.
Did everybody read the report about the Bake Off? And
I did.
I've forgotten who wrote it. I'm really sorry, but it's all over film Twitter, and it's very, very interesting read. And that should be required reading for all of you who want to predict this category because it does inform what went off really well and what didn't. And Solo did very, very well that day. They love special effects, which are not CGI. They really love that. And that's going to help Solo. It could help Welcome to Marwen, perhaps. I don't know. Like I'm not a visual effects person. I'm not an expert at all. But I'm just going off that report and going now off the VFX Guild, which I'll check out as soon as this is over. And then that will inform, because I'm worried about Mary Poppins Returns and I'm kind of not sure about Solo. I'm thinking about Welcome to Marwen. Black Panther is going to get nominated, I assume, but that's problematic. And then you've got Ready Player One, which was insanely good.
I think that's it.
Can you imagine? Can you believe we're going to have a category with 2 Marvel movies in it? Can the internet handle that? Like,
possibly.
Can the Academy handle that?
Possibly.
Potentially, we could have a category with 2 Marvel movies in it. Like that. Like that's a lot. That would be like a big deal for Marvel. But I mean, Daniel Sudeik either way is in one of the 2 films in a good position. So he's looking at his 9th and 10th Oscar nomination. But he's going to be up there in the always a bridesmaids category. The way he's racking them up. But I don't know.
I did like reading in the Bake Off about how they all went to the washroom during Jurassic World. Apparently, there's some confusion. People thought it was a bathroom break, but they're actually presenting Jurassic World.
I should tell you, you're not getting in.
Yeah, what's different about the Bake Off this year, though, is that they're not voting right after the Bake Off. They have a couple days where they can go home and rethink things and get influenced by advertising campaigns and whatnot.
Yeah, true.
I think we used to see a lot more nominees like Ex Machina, and then I feel like the visual effects branch got really mad after that win, and they've gone completely the other direction where now they hate intimate effects, they hate practical effects. Like Kong Skull Island, that's the kind of movie that I thought they would have thought had been done before, and they would no longer be nominating. But I feel like the nominees the last couple of years have been in that direction. So I'm going for all the big ones this year, which are Black Panther, Avengers, Ready Player One, Solo, and Jurassic World.
Cool.
Yeah. I would like to see Black Panther win an award. I mean, and this is not the one they're the most deserving of, but
It
go
could
ahead.
be the one they get.
Yeah. Like, unless Lady
gets
Gaga is
nominated-
winning Best Actress and then they, are splitting their votes. I don't think that's going to happen. But
Yeah, if it gets nominated, I'm sure it will win because the general membership will probably just think this is the place to give this film its award. Maybe.
Also, it's just kind of like they say, "Oh, that's visual effects," like that's a visual effects movie. Like, sure, even if they haven't watched it, they're probably just like, "Yeah, that's got that's got visual effects in it."
well, they didn't spend their
Right.
money on visual effects. I'm sure next time
Yeah.
they'll get a bigger budget for this. Like Wonder Woman's effects had the same problem where it's like, okay, next time they're going to get all the money in the world to spend on visual effects.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we do usually see the more Best Picture one win the
Yeah, and if it's the Best Picture nominee out of the 5, then I would say like that would definitely show
Think-
it.
Yeah, theoretically speaking, it'll be but who knows?
It should. I will
Who
be
knows?
pissed. It's not. Like,
Don't get mad at me, internet.
Yeah.
But who
And-
knows?
I know, and I apologize to the contenders who did the visual effects with Black Panther. I don't mean to say that your work was terrible. It's just that I just think of, comparatively speaking, there were other films that probably deserve a domination over your work, and I'm really sorry. That's just my opinion. So, I feel bad
okay.
criticizing people.
We like the movie, okay? We love the movie.
Love them.
Yeah.
I love you all.
oh, I would love for Denai Guria to get nominated, but that's definitely not going to
That's
happen.
what I want to happen, but it won't.
Yeah.
But it should.
All right, so how about final thoughts on the tech categories? Zach?
Oh, I think. Let me just. I'm trying to. I don't know what movie I have like leading the tech categories because I have like major misses all throughout. But I think that I don't think this is going to be the kind of year where we have a film that, like Mad Max, sweeps through the tech categories. I think that we're going to have, a couple of different films get rewarded throughout here. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Okay, Amanda?
I think that I always love the tech categories. You never know what's going to happen until the dust settles. But regardless of who's got the most nominations at the end of the day, I don't really think that means you're going to win Best Picture this year. I think we're going to see probably one of the movies in kind of the middle win.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that if you see like First Man, for example, show up in visual effects, and that is shortlisted, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
Yes,
If
it
you
is.
see it show up there, then I think for me the below the lines will be all about First Man next week because I think it's going to overperform. There's been this narrative over the last few weeks that First Man has really petered off because of how it performed at with the Hollywood Foreign Press, but I think that there's a lot of respect for that film. I had problems with it personally, but the last 45 minutes of it were just insanely good, technically speaking, and I think it's going to kind of almost sweep here. Probably not necessarily in costume design. You never know. But yeah, that's going to be the story for me, First Man.
And keep in mind, no film but Carol has received more than 6 nominations without getting into Best Picture. So when you're making your Best Picture nominees, if you've got a film with like 8 nominations and it's not in your Best Picture lineup, you need to go back and look at your Best Picture lineup also. Because if you've got The Favorite or First Man in 8, 9 categories and you don't have it in your Best Picture lineup, you need to either edit every other category or you need to edit your Best Picture lineup. Just saying, statistically speaking. Got it more than 6. You got to look at it. Can it make the best picture lineup?
Yeah, I wonder about the favorite because it is kind of a strange movie, and I do feel like it's only in about 7th place for Best Picture. Yet it's supposed to, get all these nominations.
Yeah.